Hey everyone, Marco here, the Bob Ross of ESO. I'm really excited to bring you my first newly revamped build for the Gold Road chapter. This scary, bloody Necromancer has 2 shiny new Scribed spells, as well as one of the great armor sets from our newest chapter. It looks terrific, it feels great, and it's an easy-to-handle 1-bar setup. But most importantly for me, it stays right on point with the Necromancer's dark theme. Now I know some players in the past have been intimidated by this class. They've heard that there's endless spell weaving, bar swapping, and complicated rotations. Well, no worries here. My build solves all those problems. So let's get into it. First, let's talk about the gear. It's a 1-bar setup, so I'm taking advantage of the many buffs we get from the mythical Oaken Soul ring. And because we're using a mythic item, our 1-piece monster set is the Slimecraw helm. The Slimecraw adds 771 crit chance and can be farmed in the Wayrest sewers. The Oaken Soul ring requires that you own High Idol and also that you have your antiquity skills maxed out. The ring provides 17 buffs, including Major Brutality and Major Sorcery. For me, it's by far the best mythic item in the game. On to the armor sets. The first 5-piece set that we're using here is Dark Convergence. Now I love this set because you rarely see other players using it. It's a bit tricky to get because Dark Convergence is PvP armor, which means it can only be acquired by participating in Cyrodiil or the Battlegrounds. For every 20,000 alliance points that a player gains, they earn loot mailed to them in the form of a container called Rewards for the Worthy. And a piece of this set may or may not be included. Dark Convergence can also drop from PvP quest rewards, especially during the White Strakes Mayhem event. For newer players or folks who tend to avoid PvP like me, the easiest way to get these pieces is to run a bunch of Battlegrounds, which really aren't very hard. Now until you get your 5 pieces of Dark Convergence, feel free to use the easily crafted Order's Wrath set as an alternative. It doesn't have the cool animations, but it will keep you alive, and you can make it or have a friend make it for you. Here are the stats on Dark Convergence. 2 items adds some magicka. 3 items adds nearly 1500 offensive pen. 4 items adds weapon and spell damage. And 5 pieces does this. Casting abilities that leave an effect on the ground, which we'll be doing a bunch, will create an area that applies 60% snare, stunning enemies for 1 second. After 4 seconds, the area deals 821 magic damage to enemies within 10 meters and 1642 damage to enemies within 3 meters, increasing by 50% for each target. The animation is an evil-looking purple whirlpool. It's very necro. Our second 5-piece set is easy to acquire. It's Macabre Vintage. This is a brand new Overland set that drops in Westweald. Obviously, having the Gold Road DLC makes this simple to farm, but you can also buy pieces on Guild Traders. This medium armor set adds weapon and spell damage for 2 pieces, weapon and spell damage for 3, weapon and spell damage for 4 pieces, and yes, 5 pieces adds more weapon and spell. And this, when you kill a monster, they burst, literally, with blood magic, dealing 50% of their max health to enemies within 6 meters as bleed damage, up to 24,000 bleed damage, and the effect can happen every half second. I love this set, and when enemies explode, it's hilarious. Very bloody, very necro. It adds a blood effect when you kill someone using the Blade of Woe, too, from the Dark Brotherhood, making the goriest animations in the game even more gory. What fun. Now we're not going to worry about the armor weights. Dark Convergence is a light set, and Macabre is a medium set, so it's possible to do the Undaunted Metal, which is 511, but I wouldn't stress over it. You want all magicka in chance, except on your Destruction Staff, which should have Precise. You can choose which staff, Shock, Fire, or Ice, but thematically Ice works the best. All the Necromancers in Skyrim used Ice. I experimented with several flavors because I didn't have the Dark Convergence Ice staff, and I still don't. Now race doesn't matter. I'm a High Elf here for the magicka passives, but Dark Elf fits the theme better. Any race will work with this setup. Okay, on to the abilities. It's 1 bar, so 5 abilities and an ultimate. Our first ability is Ricochet Skull. This tosses an explosive skull, causing 6,600 damage, and every third skull you throw causes 50% more damage and can hit 2 other enemies. It's our spammable. Ability 2 is Avid Boneyard. This puts a little graveyard down and causes 10,000 frost damage over 10 seconds. Added damage if there's already a corpse on the ground. This also triggers a nice synergy, which has a bit of a heal and can cause another 7,000 frosty damage. Ability number 3 is Shocking Explosion, one of the 2 new Scribed spells that I'm trying on this build. To scribe this, use the Elemental Explosion Grimoire. Shock damage as the focus, Lingering Torment as the signature, and finally, Brutality and Sorcery as the affix. Please feel free to fiddle around a bit with how you scribe this spell. There are 4,000 scribing combinations, so especially with the affix, you might prefer a different script. What the spell does is deal 12,000 shock damage and another 9,000 as a dot. It grants us major brutality and sorcery for 20 seconds, increases weapon and spell damage by 20%, so not a bad little spell, and very nice for large trash mobs. The 4th ability is Unstable Wall of Frost. It's our standard damage dot, dealing 1,000 frost damage every second for 6 seconds, and ending with a nice frost explosion worth 3,700 damage. The 5th ability is another scribe spell. The great thing about the new scribing system is that it lets you look objectively at each class, each build, and figure out where it's weakest, and then try to fix it. For me, the Necromancer was always a bit squishy because it lacked a good burst heal. Now scribing has begun to fix that weakness. Necromancers had some, not very good, healing abilities in both the Bone Tyrant and the Living Death skill lines, but let's look at the scribe spell called Healing Contingency. To make it, we use Ulfsed's Contingency for the Grimoire, Healing for the focus, Sage's Remedy for the signature, and Protection for the affix. Here's what that gives us. To trigger the runes, we cast any ability which has a cost. This causes a burst of magic around us. It heals us and our teammates for 8,700 health, and gives a secondary heal over time, which is 5,300 health over 10 seconds. In addition, it reduces our incoming damage taken by 5%. Not too shabby. It also looks very cool. For the ultimate, I'm using Ice Storm, but you can also choose Glacial Colossus. Ice Storm deals 6,000 damage a second for 7 seconds. For passives, take all the Gravelord passives, as well as your racial passives and the Destruction Staff passives. Champion points are as follows. In the craft tree, I slotted Steed's Blessing, Treasure Hunter, Master Gatherer, and Plentiful Harvest. The most important is Plentiful Harvest for those luminous inks that we need so bad. In the Warfare tree, I slotted Weapons Expert to increase light and heavy attacks, Fighting Finesse for crit damage and healing, Arcane Supremacy for magic resources, and Thaumaturge to increase all those dot spells by a whopping 6%. And finally, in the Fitness tree, Boundless Vitality for health, Fortified for armor, Siphoning spells for more magic resources, and Rejuvenation for added recovery. I'm using Bewitched Sugar Skulls as my food buff, and the regular Tri-Stat potions. Rotation is very simple. Throw Ricochet Skulls, add the Boneyard, fill in with Shocking Explosion and Unstable Wall, keep throwing those skulls, and use heal as necessary. Hit the ultimate when it's up. Don't be afraid to stand close to the mobs because that's necessary for our 2 armors to proc their special abilities. Now I know this new Necromancer may not be the meta or have the highest DPS numbers. That's not really my goal. I have loads of fans who are disabled vets or older folks with mobility issues. This gives these people a chance to enjoy this class of character and do basically any solo or group content in ESO besides trials and PvP. If you like these sorts of videos, please subscribe. I'll be doing a scribed version of every class in the game and also some videos just on scribing variation. So subscribe, you get it? Also, themes and lore are important for me, and I think this new Necro really checks all the boxes on that score. As always, I'm Marco. have fun enjoying the dark magic of necromancers, be kind to other players in the game, and keep exploring.